Okay, in the interest of time, we will get started. Again, welcome everybody to Drone Responders webinar with the FAA. It was going to be with John Meehan today, but due to unfortunate circumstances, he will not be on today. So given that, we will be open for any kind of questions that you have on regulations, best that we can cover today. So please feel free to put questions in the Q&A section. Please put it in the Q&A section. It's easier to keep up with than the chat because the chat keeps moving. First, I want to start off with giving everybody a little bit of some background. I had put in the message today that we'd be talking about Part 108. Well, just wanted to be clear, that was not from anybody from the FAA talking about Part 108. That's me talking about my meeting that I was invited to, a listening session with FAA Administrator Bedford, and it was basically listening to hear some more clarifications before the final rule was done. So there's more work to be done. The bottom line is, I had the opportunity to basically share everyone to them and several other people from the FAA about our concerns about Part 108. And I started out by saying if Part 108 would continue moving forward as drafted originally, it would basically shut down all the public safety UAS programs in the country, especially DFR and BVLOS operations. Then I went on to share that one of the things that we want to make sure we do is preserve what we have and not lose or lose from what we've gained over this past year. Of which many of you all were involved with that. So I want to thank the FAA for all the work that we did in the last year. And to give you an update, the work we did changing regulations on BVLOS went from 50 DFR program waivers in 6 years, from 2018 to 2024, to over 1,000 DFR waiver approvals in 6 months. And on an average of 125 new DFR programs per month. So that's pretty amazing. Having said that, what I shared with the FAA was, one, we are not like the delivery companies. We don't operate from one location to another. We don't know when we're going to fly. We don't know how long we're going to fly. And we can't afford to have a specific license spectrum, or it would be cost prohibitive for us to do that. I also shared that if they wanted to do something that would help to preserve what we've done, they could do that by taking the certificate of waiver process and putting it into the civil interest section and do it as a permit for public safety. And I had a chance to talk to a couple of the people about the mechanics of different things. And of course, they first said, well, the certificate of waivers can't be in Part 1 because we're getting away from waivers. And that's when I clarified, said, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about to put the process in as a permit for public safety, in which they said that could work because it would be a permit and it would be designed specifically for public safety, and it would give certain nuances that they could be able to do similar to what the intent was of Part 108. I further said that the information that was in the civil interest was inaccurate and very insufficient. It basically made the assumptions that we were going to fly once in a while, and it was mostly during disasters, and it wasn't going to be a regular basis, and none of that is true today. We're flying everyday missions, 24 hours a day. They were also kind of saying that they thought it might be just daylight operations, and that's not the case either. The bottom line is DFR programs around the world are saving lives, and we have documented cases of where DFR has saved lives. So I think that the meeting went well. There were some discussions that there may be some additional comments, comment section or comments received, or maybe some asking of clarifications on some of the things that went out there. So I don't know if or when that will happen. And I have heard not from the FAA specifically, but through different rumor sources that the FAA is still trying to move quickly to get Part 108 done as desired by the White House. So with that, I'll look to see if we have any questions. No questions. I'm going to open the floor. If anybody has any questions about anything in general, something that you're working on that you're not sure about, or anything else, let me know. I will say that the other thing that I'm working on with some of the other people on the FAA is to continue pursuing the tailored airspace. I think we've gotten the roadblock with that cleared. That's going forward. We're also trying to get, if you understand when you do the certificate of waiver and then you want to get tailored airspace, we've also seen that they've gone back to requiring reports again because you have to go through the old COA process, which then spins it back into having to do reports and NOTAMs, by the way. So I'm having conversations to try to get that rectified. And the other thing is, in Part 91, there was an agreement between ATO and AFS, which allows the airspace authorization to be automatic when you get the approval of the COW. So I'm trying to get that same thing transitioned over to Part 107 public safety waivers so that airspace comes automatic with it as well. That will eliminate that COA process. But now, of course, as you all know, or maybe you don't know, the Part 107 process has changed. And I don't know if, Collin, if you can talk about that at all, as far as Part 107 or Steve, but where you go and how you do it is different. I've heard you have to go and do like a me ID to identify yourself and something like that.
I'll defer to Steve to correct me because I haven't actually gone through the new process. It's very new. And so in Drone Zone, when you start try and initiate the waiver application, it's going to give you a link that takes you to the new home for this, which is it's part of the broader AVS management group. So it's called AVS Hub. The link will be there, and then you will create login credentials. I will note the rollout for this was expedited, I think tied to some of the executive orders from the White House. So, and with some of the changing of hands within the agency, there was I got the information a little bit after the fact, so apologies if I'm missing any of the details here. I'm, as noted, going through it now, but you'll create a login. I understand that it's relatively straightforward. And then if I believe the same form is used for other. I think it's tied to the. You know what, Steve? You may have gone through this more recently with some of the internal meetings. Is the AVS Hub also tied to the TSA process for review that we have that we recently did? Because I fear I might be mixing up the two.
When you said to a TSA process, you're talking about access into restricted airspace or into the FERS or the freeze?
That's the freeze. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
separate. So yeah, in this case, AVS Hub is not it does not involve the TSA steps. That's the SOSC piece. Sorry. Apologies. So yeah, it's once you get in there, it'll guide you through. To note, for anybody that is having challenges, if they are applying for the first time, please do contact the support center. We are here and ready. You can feel free to contact me, and I may stumble through the initial walkthrough with you. But if you are going through the 107 waiver process, we know that it is a change from what was in Drone Zone before. So we are trying to make sure that we are responding quickly to any queries and/or requests for assist that you may have. But Steve, am I missing any details on the fact that the new location and the fact that it is a little bit of a different process, but same information generally should be what you're providing as what you've done previously?
That is correct. The only obviously the difference is that you're not going into Drone Zone itself and applying for it through the Drone Zone web portal. You're going to the new link. There is what you're doing.
And you do have to establish credentials for that.
Yeah, I believe you set up a new login for that.
Yeah.
Right, Steve? Yeah.
That is correct. You have to set up an authentication login is what you're doing. Yeah.
It's like a me ID or something.
I believe so.
It's a U.S. government ID credential.
One thing I will take in action here, Charles, to make sure that we're not just leaving people high and dry. We are doing updates for the public safety web pages, but on this particular one, we're trying to make sure we coordinate that appropriately with the AVS folks. So in the interim, I'll chat with them as well as the communications office if they've got any updated sort of guides there that they had produced for this. Again, the rollout was relatively quick with some of the priority updates that we got. So I got to see what they've got there, but I know that if they don't have it yet, they are working it actively. So we will provide that to you guys so you can distribute it more widely. And once we have the appropriate updates agreed upon with the communications office, the public safety web pages will be updated to provide that as well within the public safety toolkit.
Yes, we got two questions here. We currently have a 91 CAWA. I know you don't have to issue a NOTAM with this new COWA, but my question is, can we issue a NOTAM through 1800 weather brief using the UOA? We found this past to be a good safety feature.
I guess I'm going to ask a quick question myself, and Steve may. I've been learning a little bit about how the NOTAMs are how the I guess this would be a drone NOTAM, how those are impacting and or being viewed by manned aviation in certain cases. Wildfire folks have given me some feedback on this as well, but the drone NOTAMs, if they are filed for long duration, like effective for months, weeks, whatever, and it's a large area. I don't mean to say this in a negative tone, but I'm passing along what I've received from various manned aviators that fly at low altitudes. The information is sort of useless to them because effectively,
what I've heard is it becomes noise.
It is, because if you go to some of the ArcGIS data where you can look this up and see the full set of these when they're digitally generated and available, you just see this gigantic sort of splotch of spots over what is typically an urban or suburban area. And they're all active for long durations of time. And as a matter of situational awareness, it doesn't really give manned aviation any situational awareness on whether or not a drone's going to be there when they're flying.
It's not constantly flying. It's that they put a window of time that it could be flying.
Yep. And we are talking a little bit internally, not as a policy update, but just trying to review with folks, particularly eventually with the weather brief folks on potential improvements there so that the data is useful for those that are impacted by drone ops that could be low altitude. So I'll leave it at that for now.
And the NOTAMs are under redesign process as we speak.
Yeah, there's been various modernization stages in implementation stuff that in certain cases I think is a little bit more behind the scenes and you just sort of see it over time. But there is a larger effort to update the backend systems, as noted, like when we had that outage a year ago or so, but also the digitization of the information. So we're minimizing the presence of like a lot of text for each NOTAM. The text NOTAMs still do exist, but there are more and more computer interpretable or machine interpretable NOTAM data out there now. Steve, if you got anything to add there too.
Yeah, let me add that when you apply for a COA in CAPS, the tracking number for that COA is ultimately transferred over to the NOTAM office, and so when you use the 1-800 weather brief, it asks for a tracking number as part of your submission, and that it does recognize that. However, I'm not sure about the COWs. I'm going to have to take an IOU for that one and get back to you because I don't believe the COWs, the tracking numbers for those are actually forwarded to the NOTAM office, in which case you're not going to be able to use that. You'll have to manually actually go and do that and talk to somebody in person to be able to file that NOTAM.
And I'll lop on top of that as the specifics, the answer. It's the COW that no longer seems to, I believe, requires filing the NOTAMs. If your existing COA does require that, then yes, you should be filing the NOTAMs per your current COA.
Which does make sense why they probably are not generating those and pushing them to the NOTAM office because there's no NOTAM requirement for it. So
yep.
Yeah. You'll probably more than likely have to speak to somebody directly to apply for to actually issue that NOTAM is what you'll have to do.
There's another question. Any update on a true one-to-many DFR operations? It appears Skydio's one-to-many waivers focused on a single incident. Customers want to send drones to different incidents with only one pilot. Anybody want to dive in on that one?
Steve, I'll let you take a crack at this first. I may add on to it, but
I'm going to say that I think Las Vegas Metro is advertising one to many. I think in their operations right now. I'm not familiar with what that approval consisted of, So the short answer is yes, they are being approved, but obviously you're going to have to apply for and provide the how you're mitigating the risk of operating more than one aircraft at a time.
Yeah, I think, some of the things I've heard in my conversations is that you need to provide the data of the performance and where you're going to be flying. I think that what I also learned is that Las Vegas is one to many it was a Part 107 in Class G airspace, and they don't have any Class G airspace. So more on that later. Next question. What the new code does not work on 1800 weather brief. We only wanted to issue a NOTAM when we had special event, when we had multiple drones in the air and flying VPLOS.
I would say that that is a good example of a situation where a NOTAM would be useful so long as it's for a limited duration.
Hey, Charles, you earlier said that Part 108 is going to stop drone as a first responder operations. Do you mean conflict or stop?
Well, what I was saying is the impact it would have is it would stop the programs the way it's written if they don't change it, because all the requirements would basically make it either cost prohibitive or um, unreasonable to be able to do anymore, because we couldn't do point to point locations. We can't fly at a certain time guaranteed. All those things I said before.
So, yeah, okay. And I don't know if people realize under Part 108, they're going to request that people use supplemental data service providers for doing commercial drone operations, flying from point A to point B to deconflict operations. And the issue is if you're flying ad hoc for 911 calls or whatever else, is how do you integrate in that airspace? So that still has to be addressed. So it's a conflict. I mean, it doesn't automatically stop your operation, but it is definitely a conflict.
Well, gosh, where was I going with that? I had a thought and then I read something and lost my thought. Yeah, so there's many aspects to how all this plays out, and we're still waiting to see what happens.
We did do a test case in the Dallas Fort Worth area where we brought in public safety people. NASA actually ran it and actually sat down and asked them how do they think they should integrate? Who should yield right away? And obviously, public safety said they should always. It's like when I'm driving in car lights and sirens, that people should pull the right side of the road and let me go by. The question is, what drone operation would you be running lights and sirens? What would have priority over Amazon delivering a package or any other company? And that really was not addressed, and it wasn't really addressed in the 108 rule, but it needs to be addressed.
So we will be announcing a national prioritization working group that we're working with the major delivery companies. They're doing some testing in Texas now in the Key site with NASA and the other agencies, exploring to see if the tax server can provide the information that would provide the telemetry back into their systems to provide prioritization. So that's an ongoing process. And a clarification, Jakey Stoltz says, Las Vegas one-to-many approval is Part 107 waiver, and it allows one PIC to operate up to 4 drones and does allow operations in controlled airspace, including their zero grids, as they also obtain the appropriate airspace authorizations. So it is out there, but what I've heard from different people at the FAA is you've got to make your safety case, you've got to tell your ConOps and tell what data you have to support the safe operations. You can correct me if that's wrong, Jakey. And then I'd like to take a moment to introduce Avision. We provide UTM services that improve airspace safety and regulatory compliance. Okay. Okay, there's contact information there if you're interested. We don't typically do promotions here of companies, but there's information if anybody wants it. The question from Redmond to Jakey is, does the waiver allow to respond to different incidents or for only a single incident? Swap drones for battery life, different angles, etc. Okay, so as Jakey says, it was through a thorough safety case is how they got their one-to-many in that operation. Now I'm waiting. Jakey is Don Redmond's question asks, is it for a single incident or can it be for multiple incidents? So are you going to a single incident and swapping the drones, or is it that you're flying to multiple incidents at the same time?
Sounds like we need to get Steve Austin from Las Vegas on this webinar to answer some questions.
Yeah, so they've their operation now is fully operational. They got a lot of docks. So let's see what else. Collin, did you want to talk anything about the new SGI tool at all? Did you want to talk about the new
Sorry,
stadium?
Sorry, I'm trying to manage the windows so I can see y'all. Is this I'm sorry, is this the TSA web portal that we're talking about here?
Well, there's two of them. There's the SGI, the new SGI tool, which allows you to, it's basically got a form now that you can automate and fill out after the fact you've gotten written approval. And then there's the TSA stadium tool.
I probably have to actually tag up with Mr. Mitchley and or Myrna at SOSC to get the preview. I've not gotten that one. I'll ask Steve, have you gotten a look into that one yet?
The only one I've explored really, Collin, has been the direct SGI process that you can go now online and apply through basically a website to do it that way, as opposed to using the formed and emailing it into the SOSC. So that's been an improvement there, is what it's been.
So Charles, give me a second to see if I've got it in a recent update, but otherwise I'll take the action to walk us through next time, happily. Apologies for not having that one ready for you.
Okay, and then the TSA stadium tool, as I understand it, is allows the public safety and others to submit the request to fly in a TFR during the stadium events,
Yep.
Which is new.
Yeah, and
So
this is effect. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
maybe we
sorry,
can
Charles.
maybe we can show that. Maybe we can walk through that next time as well.
Yep. I have walked through that one a little bit, but I will have both of those as a walkthrough for you guys next time.
And if we need to get somebody on, do so. Before I forget this, just want to let everybody know our national conference registration is now open at the Drone Responders website. It's March 10th and 11th in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Busch Gardens. We're going to split the event up into 2 different days in 2 different topics. The first day is going to be enabling drones for good, all the different public safety drone program information that you would normally have. The second day is going to be focused on counter UAS, the grants coming in the next window, detection, airspace awareness. We currently have invited the administrator Bedford to be the opener for the first day, and we have invited Steve Willoughby from DHS to be the opener for the second day. And then Mike Torphy has confirmed of opening in the afternoon to talk about the FBI's role in the training for the counter UAS. And I think Lisa Ellman may be the keynote for the afternoon of the first day, talking about enabling the drones. But for everybody, the short answer is primarily focused on swapping drones at one incident location. What they've heard from the agencies is they aren't sure that a pilot could divide their attention between more than one call for service at a time. And I think that's a good point, because it probably requires a lot more automation and autonomy to do that 4 missions at the same time from one pilot. Because if something goes wrong on one, you're probably not going to be paying much attention to the others. But this will all play out as the systems continue to improve. Anything else that anybody else has that you have questions about? I will talk briefly. This is not an FAA thing, but I will talk briefly that people are aware of the FCC ban that's taken place. And of course, I think most of us were expecting the Chinese drones to fall into the covered list, but we were not expecting all foreign drones to go into the covered list initially. And we weren't expecting critical U.S. components to be included. That was December 21st. Then on January 7th, an update came out saying if you buy American, has some details in it. I'm not going to get into that specifically, but if you're manufacturing in the United States and a certain percentage of your parts are coming from someplace else, that's okay. You still have to get the exemptions and approvals, but now it looks like the process is not going to be an extensive security or cyber check on the system. So that may help things a lot. So anybody else have anything new? Steve, anything new on your end?
The only thing I was going to actually add to the statement about the SGI process is that if you go into that form and you can't locate anything that says I'm operating under COA as a public aircraft operator. We made that aware to the SOSC and the team, and they're correcting that in a future release so that it'll be obvious that you can select you can go in and apply even though you're operating under COA as opposed to Part 107. But in the interim, just select the 107 and go in that way. That's the way you can do it, even though you're going to be operating under a COA as a public operator.
So a lot of changes, a lot of automation, a lot of things they're trying to do at the FAA. Things are moving very fast. So be prepared for anything at any moment because things are changing very quickly. I see a question here. It says, when is the SGI tool and Stadium tool effective and online?
Both are online now.
Yeah.
So we'll focus on having a walkthrough next time.
Yep.
And we'll also be talking about that at the conference in March as well.
And I will note one thing to add on. This one affects a subset of folks, and I don't know if we have folks in the room, although I believe Mark Bathrick's here. If he would identify or pass along the information to folks, probably at the state level. But for anybody that supports drone operations in wildfire environments and coordinates with Forest Service or DOI, I believe that previously there was a paperwork burden that would impact anybody that had to apply for an SGI waiver, even if they were operating under the TFR COAs for BIBLOS ops. A recent update for the processing tries to reduce that paperwork such that you do not have to obtain an SGI approval for each NOTAM per operator. So if you have the TFR, the restricted area, if it's a extended attack with TFRs implemented, you would have individual NOTAMs being issued as it followed the fire, and you would have to have a waiver for each of those. Now it's a single SGI waiver for an operator for the entirety of that particular fire event. Again, only impacts those that are supporting within and are operating under an issued COA for BIBLOS ops. But just a heads up for you guys if you don't know that already.
And I see here, Steve, you put in the link to the SOSC online. I take it you have to have an ID for that or an account. It says login.
Yep, you create an account.
Yeah, you will first set up a login account, and then you'll be able to go in. That's correct. Yeah.
So is it a good idea for people to go and do that already and have the account?
Absolutely. I would say that why wait?
Yeah. No, he's trying to figure it out in the middle of an emergency.
Yep.
Steve, also, I think you had been responding to one of these items, but I don't know if we'd announced this before. For those that may have a cap or have to go into caps for a renewal or for a new COA anytime soon, I think we had a transition for the back end system, right? So you have to potentially log in and update via login.gov.
Yeah, that actually occurred in August of last year is when they
did I'm sorry.
Yep.
It was, so we already announced. I was just dealing with somebody having challenges because they were just renewing. I didn't realize it was so long ago. Apologies.
Yeah, well, when your COA expires 2 years after you submitted it, then yeah, anybody prior to that who's now coming up for renewals, they're finding that out. That when they go to log into it, they have to authenticate himself through the login.gov portal. That's what it is.
A friendly reminder for anyone. There are occasional hiccups there. Contact DOA Support Center. You may also get prompted to call a number via login.gov, depending on if you get an error. Please call them first and then give us a shout in the event that you're still having issues.
That was the other thing too that I have addressed and working through is that when you go through and are trying to get tailored airspace or something different than the norm, when you go into the COA, the old CAPS process, that also has different renewals than the COW.
Mhm.
So that now has slipped back into the mix to where you've got the COW that has a renewal date, and then you've got the CAPS for that as far as the COA on the special authorization of a different renewal. So I'm trying to work through to standardize everything across. And one of the things that I did hear in the meeting on with the administrator and the team was that as much as possible they want Part 108 to be all encompassing, so that it doesn't have differentiate between Part 108 and Part 107, and it's just operations. Because the other thing that we said is what's important under Part 108 is to be sure that agencies like volunteer fire departments, non-agencies that are not eligible for PAO, public aircraft operations, under Part 91 would still be allowed to be operating under Part 108 as well. And they said they were looking to try to be all encompassing. I did also say that I'd hope that they would still maintain some Part 107 waivers for BVLOS operations, because for the small operators, for the smaller agencies that aren't going to rise to this much higher level of requirements that they've put on the system. And they said they would take all that into consideration. So let's see. I don't have anything else to cover, so I don't want to belabor today. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up as far as what they're seeing, hearing, or anybody else have any questions? I'll give it one last shout out and then urge everybody to come to the conference in March and we'll answer the rest of your questions. Well, seeing that we have total silence, I think we have come to covering all that we can cover today. All right, with that, I'm going to give it a wrap for today. Thank all of you for being on today, and we'll see you here next month and see what else we can come up with. And if we have some more details, we'll provide information on the other updates and other things we've been working on. Happy New Year, everybody. This will be recorded and available for anybody who missed it. See you all next time.
See you guys.